Good morning. Hello, happy Monday. How are you all doing today? Got my tea steeping. It's a new week. I'm feeling pretty good. Plus, we got the Asteroids clone pretty much done. Now, like, are there things that could make it a lot better? Could we, really continue working on that? Yes, but I'm not sure with like the current skills that I have and also the like the tools available to me. I don't think it would be worth it and like necessarily fun and interesting to watch. I feel like we got it to the point where what is it? It's diminishing returns is sort of like what I'm thinking about if I continue to work on it too much. That being said, like, there might be little bug fixes here and there that we could work on, but it's playable. We can actually do this thing. So if I go over to Asteroids Rust, cargo run, release mode, it works. Even with the sounds, which is great. So I guess there's a couple things that I want to do. I want to actually make it so that I can play this on like my other computers pretty easily. Right now, this game does require, what is it called? This game requires a local version of the ECS. So if I go into cargo.toml here, we'll see that ECS is just a path here. So I want to deploy this to like the latest version of ECS. Something else I noticed is I got a failure when trying to deploy BBECS yesterday. Our failure was like the tests failed. It's not super great information, but come over here to actions. We'll see added GG sound, deploy failed over here in test. So what exactly happened? Left is 0, right is 1. Okay, so it's just a plain old failure. This was test inserting an ID after deleting should work. I mean, one would think that should work. Go ahead and try running that test like manually here. So cd into ECS. Let's run the tests. Because if I get that going, then we can just put a version number here as opposed to the local path.
Reinforcements have arrived.
Oh, that was Pretzel coming in. That's awesome because I have the game running in the background. Okay, so let's see. So what's going on here? Insert entity after deleting should work. Okay, this is deleting 81. So you are 1 and you are 0. So we delete by ID. And then we assert that you should, okay. What's actually going on? Also, I'm gonna stop you because it's slightly annoying listening to the sound now when I'm trying to concentrate on something else. Okay, inserting entity after deleting should work. So we create a world, we register size, and then we spawn an entity with that size component. We query for it. So there's only one entity in the world. We query for the size and entity ID. We get that out. We get the ID. So we get this ID. We tell it to delete. So now there's going to be 0 entities in here. We update the world, so they should actually then be fully deleted. Then we spawn a new entity. Okay, with component this. Yeah, why would I think that it should get the new ID? Because I believe that the ID is never reset and is never reused. Just checking this. Let's see. I want to say, is that an entity data? No, that's components there. Is it world? Next entity ID. So next entity ID. When we spawn an entity, we just increment 1. We insert, we give that in there. Yeah, we never reset this. So it's kind of a failure on my part to like think that that's how it should work. I don't want to like actually decrement the entity ID. Let's just keep on going up forever. That's very similar to like how databases do it. They always just increment continuously and never reuse old ones unless like you go in and manually change things around. So I'd be okay with this. This game shouldn't last that long for us to need that. So I'm going to change the test here. You should now be 1 equals this. And wrapped size borrow should be the more recent one. So if I do that, rerun our tests. Now everything passes. Okay, awesome. I am going to go ahead and send this on up to GitHub. So updated tests so that they pass. We're going to push. I've already incremented the version number. So when this action finishes, we should get, it should auto deploy to creates.io, and we should be able to then use the new version number in there. In Rust Asteroids, and then push that up so that way we're good to go. Okay, so with that, I have a lot of sort of like the documentation in this freehand document from Envision. It's sort of like a big whiteboard. It allowed us to sort of like play around with any kind of like math things that we were doing, but at the same time to actually do the core design doc part of it. So I want to maybe down here do a bit of a retro. And think about what was good, what was not good. So we have the good and could be improved. So let's start with the actual like game itself. If we play through it, oh, I exited that out? Okay, I didn't want to do that. Epic Blarg, hello. Do you have any idea how many hours you spent implementing this, excluding the core ECS engine? It feels like it went pretty fast. So that's a good point. I don't have that. We can look at the number of episodes that it was, which gives me like a rough number of days. But like my Sundays are anywhere between like 2.5 to 4 hours of coding. And my weekdays are anywhere between an hour and like 2 hours of coding. And then, as you said, there was a significant part, especially in the beginning, where we were only working on the ECS library and not on this one. So that could be something really nice to throw in here.
Reinforcements have arrived.
So could be improved. Let's throw track time spent on core on like actual project. On maybe like the project repo. That would be really nice. One thing I wish I could do here is I wish I could increase the font, but not increase the size of the sticky. That would be really nice. Can I do that? Not really. Okay, so that's like one big thing. Having like a source of music would be really nice. So having music and sounds earlier in the game would be nice. And that's just so I can make sure that I have like the right pattern for it. In this case, it wasn't that bad of a that big of a problem, but I can foresee like as we get bigger and bigger projects that would be nice too. For our chat interactions, oh hello Chantilly Cake. For our chat interactions, it would be really nice to have events. So listen to events, not just chat. That being said, I think I want to make these red. And you can be green. That being said, the chat interaction is really fun. So I think that this works out really well. Also, like the performance is better than I expected it to be. Performance, even with lots of bullets and asteroids. Other thing here, I couldn't figure out a proper way to do AI. Like I would have loved to make it so that you're all ships in here and like flying around. That would have been pretty amazing. So no proper AI. And that, like a big part of that is skills. I don't have like AI building skills yet. So let's actually add a new section here to retro, which is skills to learn. I'm not guaranteeing that these are like actual skills I'm going to learn, but maybe. Let's see. So skills to learn for this, we want probably like a machine learning AI. Let's just say AI to auto play games. That would be really nice. Is there anything else in here? Events. Okay. So I don't know if that's really like a skill to learn. That's just a project to make. Is like listen to the events. Same thing, like a project to make to track on time or to find somebody else who has done it already. Okay. Let's see. Having the game over, playing with this. I think this is all like the rest of this is all pretty fun and good. So let's go in and walk through the code. Take a look at that, because there's some parts of this. What is the key? Is it shift? It is, okay. No, it's not shift. So you see, if I open up BBECS here, I have like source and site open. If I hold down, no, that's not it. Alt, if you hold down Alt and close it, all the sub windows close too, which is really nice. That way I can open it back up again and everything's closed and we can move forward. Okay, so figuring out like resources for like installing. So eventually I would love to make these little interactive experiences and have them like have other streamers use them. I think that would be a lot of fun to sort of like deploy out there. Make it available for others. And there's a couple things that I would need to do in order for that to happen. One of them is I can't imagine not having like code signing for Windows. There's some people that might be willing to install something that like says, hey, this is bad for your computer. But there's also plenty of others that would freak out and then not do that, especially if they're non-technical and they don't really know what that means. Also, resources in GGEZ, not the easiest experience. It looks for these in a very special location that is either in the same directory the executable is, which makes sense. I've seen plenty of places that do that, or it looks into like a special like app data location on the computer, which is different if it's a Linux, Mac, or Windows. That being said, if it's all in like the same place, I think that should still be fine. So we have resources there. I should probably start thinking about using with resources other files too. Dota 2 Attitude, hello, good morning. Let's see, if we come in here, if we just start with main, is there anything that we really care about? Your final school presentation is in 15 minutes. Well, good luck with that. And after this, no more school. Well, I mean, you guarantee that, but like, if there's anything I've learned, I went back and like did little school projects or other classes, but like once you're done with core schooling, going back to like take a course just to learn something is the best feeling ever, because you don't have to care about your grade. You're just there to learn. And then you find out how much of the stuff you don't actually need to stress about. It's actually really awesome. And I understand you've taken a lot of courses. You're going to be done with school after this. It's going to be awesome. But if it's in 15 minutes, I don't want to distract you from that. You probably got to prepare, right? You already prepared. You're ready for this. Whatever they throw at you, you're good. Well, you were born ready, or at least you made yourself ready within the last, 48 hours or so. Resizing is still something that I've never really gotten a really good handle on. So, resizing the window and having the UI responsive. Basically, the UI in general. UI in general is something that we can improve on. So actually this might be over there. So UI, like responsive UI. And responsive UI might not be correct. Maybe we want some kind of UI that allows us to change the resolution inside of there instead of dragging and resizing the window that way. I've seen lots of games that do that. It's like, hey, what resolution do you want? And then we'll just set it for you. This is a minimum back padding stream. Oh yeah, and my games are not web dev. Not here. I have done a lot of web dev, and I do that during the day. So I try not to do that on my personal time, because then I just are doubling down in one set of skills, and that's it's also not fun if I just do the same thing I do at work at home. I want to like diversify. Okay. You're heading out to your last exam. Good luck, Dota 2 Attitude. Hopefully everything goes just as you expect, and it's all awesome and good. Thank you so much, and we'll look forward to having you back on, free of classes and school. Let's see. So then there's something else here, like properly quitting a thread when it's done, I think is probably just like, I always assumed that as soon as the main thread exits, previous whatever threads exist are just gone. But maybe I need to like join them together and like stop them somehow. So not properly handling message thread. So skills to learn, basically async threads, like learn more about that. All right, let's head into the main library here. There's a lot to unpack here. Just so many use statements up the top. Now, there's part of this is Rust Analyzer sort of like started doing weird things for us, where it just started yelling at, like not pulling in things like the names and the helpers. But a big problem here is like, okay, so we're not storing very much in our game state, which is good. I think that's good, because it allows us to have things like RNG and noise. To that end, though, I think that a good skill to learn for this would be using a facade pattern for libraries. So for those of you who don't know, the facade pattern is a programming pattern, like one of the Gang of Four's like original, 25, 26 programming patterns. The idea is if you have a library, like let's say Rand, that you want to use, a facade pattern allows you to create a wrapper around it that exposes it could be even the same interface. Like I expose RNG. And that's really just RNG in there, but it's my RNG this time. And so I can just say like, hey, generate me a range. It handles all of that stuff behind the scenes. The nice thing is in the future, if I want to like, if their API changes, so I can keep it up to date and just change it in there. Oh, it's not RNG anymore. Now it's like Rand RNG. Or if like another Rand crate comes out, that's, you know, even better, that I want to use that instead, I could easily switch over and do that, and then the interface into my game never changes. I've been reading a little bit on architecture, and there is a argument which I haven't yet, I'm still like not sure how I feel about it. I've been asking like senior architects that I know what their theories are. That every external library should have some kind of facade pattern to it. Probably not on the game engine itself, but I mean, maybe also, I don't know. And I guess like in a framework is different than a library. A framework, you don't really have a choice. It calls your code. But a library, I could facade that pretty easily. It is a lot of extra work though. So that's like something I want to consider is I could basically have a like a random create like a facade that then wraps around particles, RNG, rand, and noise, which would be nice because then like noise, there's actually a couple noise crates out there that I could, you know, switch back and forth between. And then the noise offsets and everything else would be included in there. And then I remember there's another pattern that's not the facade pattern, but I forgot what it's called. But it's basically facade pattern plus doing a little bit of extra. That's probably what I'm thinking about here, because then it is basically just a random number generator wrapper that wraps around all the random number generator crates that I would possibly want to use. All right, so creating everything in new. Having helper functions to do this would be really nice. There's just so much here in the new function. Let's actually take a look. If we just look at the core method, and not even looking at like what we're returning here, this is. Oh, does this not tell me? I can see the number of columns. Oh. Okay, fine. This is line 75. To line 222. What is that? 222 minus 75. 147 lines in the constructor for this. Not good. Not great. I used to work on a huge military security platform and I put everything behind custom RPC interfaces. It was a massive nightmare at times. Oh, okay. So that's good to know. One of the issues was translation of error codes. It was just impossible to map everything properly. That's a good point. So, Rust handles error codes maybe slightly differently, and I wonder because, and it's a good question because like, should a facade pattern be inside of the project or be like an external crate that goes out? Like BBECS, like I could do an ECS inside of the game itself, or I could create an external crate that does it for me. If I do it inside the project itself, error codes can be consistent very easily across, you know, everything. That being said, I've actually got more and more used to Rust's error management. Let's actually put that into a win here. I'm liking Rust's error handling just more and more over time. So Rust errors are real errors now. Back then it was just C and Ada. I don't think I've ever programmed in Ada. And I've done just enough in C to not hit the pain of it. Okay, so. Yeah, there's a big thing in like programming is how much abstraction do we really want? Like in here, I probably want to like break things out. We have an entire section for registering things. These should be broken out into different functions in my mind. Probably functions. They could be on the library, but they can just be in helpers too. So break the constructor into different functions that we call. So break complicated code into separate functions. That's sort of like a general problem. We also have tons of these unwraps, which is not necessarily a big problem. In this case, I'm returning a game result. I could have fixed that by returning like my custom error, like an error result instead of a game result. So that would have allowed me to get rid of all of these unwraps in this file. So would really be helpful. But yeah, a lot of this code could probably go into different functions, lots of different functions. That would clean it up quite a bit. And we actually see, I have some of these functions out here right now. We have like create the level text, which is not a method on the object. It's sort of like a static method. So I can call it and go. So I need just many more of these. You're honestly and pleasantly surprised that all of those two strings didn't show up more in the flame graph. With that being said, yes, absolutely. I'm gonna get to that. But yes, the flame graph. Oh, let's add that in. The flame, we like had a flame graph, like that was pretty cool. But also, oh, I guess like actually the performant really shows that. Like the flame graph was really amazing. It showed that almost none of that stuff was causing a problem. Now, I don't know if that's just because Rust compilers, when it's trying to like optimize during the compiling, just like figured everything out and was like, here he goes, we're gonna compile it all into really amazing stuff. And I kind of wonder if I ran the flame graph not on release mode, but on dev mode, what it would look like, because maybe those two strings would be worse. I don't know enough about Rust internals to like know what it's doing with those. But yeah, so like smaller functions would be good. Update also, like having smaller functions for these would probably be really nice, because look how many systems I have. And this is just for Asteroids. This is not for like a really complicated game. So a really complicated game, I would imagine that would have, let's see, how many of these systems do I have? If I search for the word underscore system here, maybe with like open parentheses, 34, okay, I have 34 systems that I'm calling in this file. That's like, it's not a lot. I could imagine a game, like a complicated game, like let's say I was, let's see, if I was making, if we go forward like a decade or two, instead of Asteroids, we were making something like Metroid. And if we think about it, that itself is not too complicated of a game. It's still 2D. That would be hundreds, if not thousands of systems programmed in this way. So we need some way to like organize the running of systems so that it's not just all in here, which is probably, once again, a bunch of different functions to call that abstracts them out. So like we want to run all of the like collision detection systems, all of the like the AI systems. Those would sit somewhere else in some function. We call them, and then it would just be, we'd see a lot less unwraps here. And some of our patterns for like the facade pattern would really help with like this type of stuff too. We wouldn't need to think about it in like the main game loop. Drawing. So the biggest, the problem that the flame graph showed us was we want to minimize the number. Well, we don't know. We don't know. So maybe like experiments to run. I'm gonna move these down. Experiments up here. So an experiment that we could run is how to reduce what was that? It was the present. It was the graphics present time. And the two experiments that I sort of like think we could do, which is reduce number of, or consolidate draws. Consolidate draws. Or maybe use a shader. So use a shader instead of textures. That would be two different things that we could possibly do for this. Let's give you, give me purple. And that would, like, if we could do that, that would reduce our, the performance, increase the performance by a huge amount. Resizing, like actually figuring out the resizing, but we already have that as like a skill to learn. All right, let's start delving into everything. So errors, I'm not completely sure that, so like I'm happy with our error handling, which I have there. I'm not completely sure that I really need these because I'm not really catching any of these errors. A bail could be just as good. And I started using bails later. So I'm thinking that like just use bail. That being said, creating these errors is pretty awesome. It's pretty good. Let's see. In helpers, we have a ton of helpers in here. And I think creating the helpers earlier. So like the helpers were really nice. Helpers helped a lot, but could be improved is start helpers at the beginning, and I guess like start them beginning is one of them, and organize helpers into sub modules. So right now we just have a flat sort of like folder of helpers, and they're just all in here. I really think that a lot of these could like probably should be organized together into like maybe different groups to find them a lot easier. There was a bunch of ones that like I forgot that I had created them, and so therefore kept on like recreating them in the systems over and over and over again. So that would be a really nice systems. Like I sort of started doing that with like having a main and like the particles. However, we then found out that there's some of the systems for particles that were useful in the other ones, like the bullet movement and other things. So we really should consider some kind of organization for these a little bit better. That being said, I'm still pretty happy at like how they ended up working out. But if we come into like one of these random ones, for example, like their spawn UFO, I randomly clicked on. The queries for this are pretty not fun. That being said, I don't know a better way to query through this. That could be a, like the code is pretty ugly. So let's add that in first. So ECS query / get resource code is really ugly. But a skill to learn here would be macros to sort of like make working with ECS cleaner. So if I learned macros, I might be able to have a macro to do a query, and it just like returns the wrapped thing on its own. That could be really nice. Something else we saw is like this entire, like all these toStrings. If we head over into our helpers names, we just have this macro here for toString. So basically a macros to like return stir from enum. That would be really nice as well. Probably like a static stir. Do macros run at runtime or at compile time? I don't remember. I think they run at compile time, right? They like insert all of the code, because it's like code generation is what macros are doing. Or I guess like there's different types of macros too. The type of macro I'm thinking of is the code generation one. Yeah, that's what you're thinking too. Okay, that I'm correct in sort of like thinking about it in that way. Okay, so the systems, like I generally like the systems, but querying for it is really ugly. I think macros would help that a lot. Let's see, anything else like in here? The macros to like make it so I don't have to do toString in here, and maybe updating the ECS. So update ECS to not take a string, but rather something else that like I wonder if I can go back to like the generic, or maybe the key could be dynamic dispatched. I don't know, probably generic. Probably generic. So string something else for the keys. Then I can like avoid to have this be like a toString constantly. And even if I have it be like strings as the keys, if I could just pass in a stir, then the ECS library could toString that or to own that whenever it really wants to, which is not actually that often. Most of the time it needs a stir, which is why we see like all of these constantly toString this and then give me a reference. It's like, why? Why do I need to do that? Okay. So I think, I mean, and then the rest of it is like, that's pretty much the game. It's a simple game. There's not too much else around. I think we also want some kind of like UI, how to create a UI, skills to learn. I also want like code signing to make installing on Mac, Windows, painless. Maybe I could deploy to the Windows Store because that's the most used store of all the operating systems. Looks a little silly, yeah, but the borrow checker demands some sacrifices. That's true, but there's, well, okay, the borrow checker demands some sacrifices. That's very true. At the same time, I am, this is all single threaded. So if I do like async threads for systems to run in. That could be really nice too. So if I were to go to like wiki, if one of the things that I noticed when I search for ECS at the beginning of like creating the entity component system, I should really just go to this one. Let's see, where is it? Okay. Characteristics. There's only 3 characteristics to an ECS system. We have the entity. The entity is a general purpose object. Okay. Now, I'm not doing this as like an object. My entity is really just a like there's no entity object that represents that. I think that's interesting. I just have the vertical through all of the vectors. The component, one aspect of the object, I definitely have that. And then we have the system. Each system runs continuously as though each system has its own private thread and performs global actions on every entity that possesses a component. So I'm wondering, would it be appropriate to run each of the systems in their own thread and they're just constantly checking things? Or is it best to have it not be in its own thread and single threaded exactly like what I have, where every thread we just in parallel go through everything? I guess it would be in serial because like it's single threaded, it's going top to bottom. Run this, run this, run this, run this. That could be interesting too. That being said, I am happy the way it's working. We're using an RC ref cell, which has a little bit of overhead right now. If I were to make it multi-threaded, that would make me have to use arc and mutexes, which would add even more overhead to like accessing each individual component in the world. It wouldn't be too big of a problem. It would actually look very similar to what I have right now. But at the same time, there'd be a lot of runtime checks. So it like ironically might make it slower over the long period. I don't know. Are there any other like experiments to run? So like we have these 2 ones that's like huge for us. How to create a UI is like pretty big. Macros. So I guess like macros to make using the ECS library nicer. I think that's it for experiments to run. And then if I was to sort these skills to learn, like that as pretty low, I don't really care about that as much. Utsby, hello. Threading some systems makes sense, but games generally need to be synced with the frame loop and commonly have order dependencies. That's very true. I've been watching a lot of the old GDC talks because like a lot of them had technical, like here's how we like actually program this stuff. And I remember I was, what was it? It was Mortal Kombat 11 or maybe 10. Like one of those Mortal Kombats, they had written it mostly single threaded, and it was performant until they like tried to add in a lot more stuff, and then they multi-threaded it and used like several more cores for stuff on the various consoles, and then like got way more performance where I was able to add so much more stuff. That being said, I have no idea like how to do that, so it's probably not really something I really want to focus on right now. Peyton Rules rating with a party of 4. Welcome, 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 Peyton Rules. Also, how was your stream? You were working on your WebAssembly game, right? I think you were setting like a background for it. Is what I remember seeing like the the announcement? Oh yeah, let's do that. I almost forgot. Where's our shell? Let's code, let's build, skimmer, cargo run, release. This is still a pretty fun game to play. I should really make it so that people can request which one they want to play. That could be fun too. Background today and spent a bunch of time with sprite animation. Oh, sprite animation is so fun. You're gonna go help the kiddo. You went a little long. All right, I know exactly what that's like sometimes. Thank you so much for the raid again, and have a great rest of your day. All right, so we're ready. We're here going with the get the streamer game. This is a game that we made like 2 games ago, I think. 3 games? I forget now. I kind of want to remake this, but with like some new things. Let's see. B Porter, KO2 fan, Rizix. Hello, welcome everybody. I like the beginning of the game where it's like easy and I'm like, I can feel confident that I'm not gonna lose too many hearts, and then I do a stupid thing, then I freak out, and everything goes downhill from there. Like that. No. Well, Beporter, you got a lot more points. Okay, so what are we working on here? So we've been going through and retroing the Asteroids game, and let me show you the Asteroids game, because I think it's pretty cool. Do a cargo run. We have to put into release mode. GG Easy is not the best in non-release mode, especially for lots of things drawn to the screen. So here I get to like move around. It's a pretty standard, but as Kafka just showed, you all can join the game and help out. So just by chatting in chat, it will spawn a platform for you. And then you can set what kind of strategy, like firing strategy, you want to have. And I can help out too. So far, I think level 10 working together is how far we've gotten.
What could go wrong?
It's a little bit, it feels like a little bit loud. I don't know if you can hear me easily over this.
Reinforcements have arrived.
Oh. Okay, 4 lives left.
Reinforcements have arrived. Target the nearest asteroid.
All right, we're getting enough people that it's getting interesting here. Chantilly, hello. I love that the UFO is supposed to be like something dangerous and it just dies instantly every time.
Target the nearest asteroid.
All right, level 6, it's starting to get hard. Oh, okay, 2 lives left. Oh, come on. There we go.
Target the nearest asteroid.
All right, last life. and instantly destroyed on level 8. So, but we got 20 points. More asteroid and lead the targets. Okay, that's a really good point. Could be improved is more I don't know if we can add more asteroids. But leading the targets, so like leading the targets as a platform could be really good. That would require me to learn the math skills. So math for predicting where the target will be, or speed of my bullet. I was thinking about this. It feels like a math problem, like a word problem that you get in elementary school. It's something like an asteroid is traveling from point A to point B at 37,000 kilometers per second. A platform can fire a bullet at 55,000 kilometers per second. At what angle should the platform fire its gun to hit the asteroid? You have 2 milliseconds to calculate this. Probably less than that, actually. Popping asteroids outside the window at first. Yeah, that could be interesting too. So like learning this. Now, if I wanted to order these in some kind of order that makes sense for me, I'm going to use something called the is it the Eisenhower matrix or the Einstein matrix? I don't actually remember. So you have a lot more designs I can use. Oh, nice. So I want something like this. The idea here is we can use top to bottom is urgency. So urgency is want arrows in both ends. So urgency is like this. And then we have importance. Importance is left to right. With more important to the right and more urgent at the top. This is like a decision-making metrics. It's a thing that you can do to like determine what you should work on first. Because I can't work on everything at the same time. So like, where was this? I would say that this is not urgent, but it's like pretty important. I think it would make it like look really cool. Even making it an arg might be fun. Asteroid number 2 versus asteroid number 4 could be degrees forward to aim. Oh yeah, so like, yeah, you can give it like how much you want to lead as the player. So like more options as the player for interaction. That could be really interesting. Minor graphical update would be to avoid clipping the asteroids out when they move from one side to another. That's true. So like could be improved is draw asteroids on both sides of screen when transitioning, like when wrapping. So that could be good too. AI, I would say that this is more important but like less urgent. So down there. Macro to return texture. I would say that this is up here. I need some way to like not have to do 2 strings constantly. Async threads for systems to run in. I would say this is not really all that important and not really all that urgent. Responsive UI. This is pretty important and pretty urgent. Like I've been ignoring it for a while, but I need to learn how to like properly do that. And Utsby, I know you've been like giving me hints over like 3 projects now, and I just still can't wrap my head around like how to properly do that. It's like it's gonna end up being like my the thing that defines me, and I don't want that to happen. Macros to make working. Okay, I think this is pretty important and urgent too. Facade patterns for libraries. I think this is really important, but not necessarily urgent to work on. And code signing. This is not important or urgent down there. So if we really think about it, like these 4 things at the top are what I really want to work on for the next experience that we do. And then over time, like, you know, it doesn't mean that we're not going to work on this. It just means that if I run out of time, these are the things that like get priority. This is something I would really like to improve too, but I might be able to utilize my wife. She knows a lot more math than me. She might be able to help like explain or do the calculations for me too. And I'm not yet there with the skills. However, in my afternoons, I've been going through Nature of Code, and the later chapters of Nature of Code actually implement some kind of genetic algorithms for like machine learning type things. So I will eventually get here just over time by continuing that learning. Now, experiments to run. I kind of want to learn all of these things. Consolidate draws might be a huge one, but if I do images, I want to like look up in GGEZ. Let's go into graphics. When I create a mesh, so if I have like a mesh builder, can I apply a image to a texture? Yes, I can. Okay, so I can have a texture takes an image to apply to the mesh. So that means I can theoretically have a single draw with everything for that frame inside. And that means every frame I'm like creating a new texture, but that may be cheaper than creating a bunch of textures that are like in position 0, 0 and like then translating them over and like doing 1,000 draws. That being said, I don't know if that's actually going to improve the time of Present, because Present might not care about the number of draws being done. It might care about the complication of the textures being drawn. I don't know. We'd have to like do some experiments with that, but that's why we have this listed out as an experiment. So this is one thing to do. How to create a UI is like another big experiment to work on. If I do the UI, that sets me up with I could then like very easily make like a settings or a config UI. Let's see, what else? Macros to make using the ECS library nicer. Yes, that's huge too. It's time for us to learn macros. And I think there's one final one, which is experiment to run. Not experiment to run. Skills to learn, which is huge up in this area, which is going to be an event passing system to reduce reduce all of my structs and systems being aware of each other. So what is it called? It's not complexity, it's not tight knit, it's like there's a technical term for it. It left my brain. For enum interaction, you can check out this crate, Strum. So I was using Strum. Maybe there was another one that I didn't have to use. Tightly coupled. That's what it is. To reduce tight coupling. So this is absolutely huge. So I guess there is an experiment that I could run in this, which would be what kind of data, like structure, architecture, pattern to use for event passing. There's the observer pattern for like classic object oriented. Oh, multiplayer. Yes. I'm gonna put this over here. Multiplayer. I think I need to learn these skills before I can do multiplayer. I think it's blocked. But as soon as I learn these ones, multiplayer is it. We're gonna be getting there. My ultimate goal, like imagine if I could do this, well heck, it doesn't matter. All of my games, the drop game or the this Asteroid game, imagine if you could open up on your computer a version of that itself, and you're like, I want to go right here and I want to shoot here, and like I'm gonna click and press, and then we're all playing together. That could be amazing. I would love that. You're thinking about trying some changes to parts of BBECS, and maybe streaming a kind of analysis review thing. Yeah, absolutely. Definitely. When you do that, let me know. And if I'm available, I'll show up and, and sort of like watch it. Yeah, like, I guess like a lot of this, and I've been thinking about this. A lot of like what I'm doing is, I mean, even though I haven't played too many games recently, I've been doing a lot more game development than like game playing. Which like shout out for my evening streams that like I'm trying to do when I have time, which is actually playing games, getting through those and doing that. But I feel that making games is a way to really appreciate the games that we consume and play, at the same time as like improving our general programming skills. So it's sort of like multiple benefits that help out, but at the same time it's like making me feel closer to the games that I'm playing. So I like. Okay, so I think this is pretty good for a retro here. Now for future, like what we're going to be moving on next, like I think we want to start working on these experiments. Some of these experiments are actually also have to do with these skills to learn. Like for example, macros to make using the ECS library nicer, that, you know, also whiz with this skill. Responsive UI and like create a UI, how to do that. These are kind of together. These are like tightly coupled together. Like basically gotta do that. I'd suspect you stream while you're at work. I can sometimes join in while I'm at work, but oftentimes I would end up having to like constantly go off to meetings and do other things, because unfortunately I'm not able to like focus mode too often while I'm at work. It's the side effect when you're like the team lead. I make myself available for interruptions that the rest of the team does not. But I think that's how most team leads should do it. At least most managers. So, all right. We have a little bit of time left. So I want to sort of like start thinking about what's like the first experiment we want to start working on? Like if I wanted to order these, like learning macros, I kind of want to do this maybe last. This could be like really interesting too. And would that change architecture? Probably not, because each of these things are their separate sections. Macros is really nice. Event passing, I don't know. What do you all feel? If I make this, let's see. Oh wait, I can do a poll, can't I? What do I do? How do I do a poll in here? Oh, manage a poll. Okay, so added that to my sidebar. Manage poll, create a new poll. Okay, question. What experiments to run first? Responses. Okay, so we have UI, macros, draws, and events. Oh, I can make a pay to win for votes. That's not cool. We're gonna do a 1 minute duration, and that poll is out. Okay. Okay, I can still see that. Oh, I can see it as the event, as like the votes come in too. So you can vote through chat, I believe, and then hopefully if you're on mobile too, I think you should be able to vote as well. Unfortunately, if you're watching the VOD on YouTube, I'm like a week behind in these putting them up, which means that I'm going to start working on the next thing before it ends. Can I explain UI? Yes. So in like a proper UI game. So for example, I'm going to go ahead and open up. The game I've been playing most recently is this Tyranny. Like these are our evening games. So if I open this up, so a UI would include things like a menu system. So I can like choose what to do, like buttons to work on. And if I go to like options, having the ability for me to be able to set, okay, for graphics, I want, one of these resolutions. And then that could be my responsiveness for everything else. I could then calculate, hey, based upon if it's 1920 by 1080, this is where things should go. This is where things should be displayed. Also like setting VSync and full screen and doing things like that would be really nice. I don't know, making UI systems really pushes your buttons. Oh, that's great. Love it. Okay, I think the poll ended. Can I see? View results. Okay, so events won. With UI and macros being second. Draws, nobody cares about the draws. So events won. So I can delete that poll now. Oh, cannot delete the poll. It's already done. Okay, so we're gonna go after, where are you? Events. So what kind of architecture we want for the event passing? So you are the thing. You care about draws, just not as much as macros. Yeah, I can see that. So basically feels like this is the order from right to left. this is the order to do them in. We're here, and then we'll move backwards. All right, so if I were to try to like define what kind of like event passing patterns there are. I know, so like the book, do we still have that book up? I don't. Game Program Patterns does have a chapter in this book, and we went through it ourselves. I think it was sort of like the observer pattern, but then they talked about like different ways of doing this. So we could reread this chapter and like sort of look at this. Or I can just sort of like figure it out as I go through it. I don't know. It is 8:15, so it's our normal ending time. I'm thinking I'm gonna spend the rest of the day thinking about how, like, what features I want to have in the observer. I guess it's not. It doesn't have to be observer. The event system, and then also like an experiment that we can do. I don't necessarily need it to be a full game, so maybe like a really tiny something that just shows that off, and then we'll build that. So I'm gonna start that tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. Mountain Time. So I'm gonna go ahead and end the YouTube video now.